Hi, my name is Jim. I'm a narcissist. I have narcissistic personality disorder. Making these videos for anybody that's looking to gain any information, what it's like to have this disorder. I am officially diagnosed. I'm not a licensed anything, which means I am not a licensed counselor, and I'm not a licensed therapist. I am not a licensed psychologist. I'm not a licensed psychiatrist. But I did stay at I didn't stay at a Holiday Inn last night. All right. No time to be silly. Serious time. So, been a while since I made a video. Been pretty busy, right? Did want to jump right into something big that happened, and it happened yesterday. So really important. I'm trying to grow an array of friends, right? Really important that I still share that I'm making the conscious decision not to date at this point. I want to get really in control and comfortable of where I am with my disorder and being able to control my disorder before I put anybody at risk of me emotionally abusing them. And I'm just not there yet, right? So I am just talking about friendship, but I am looking to grow my friendship tree, right? And neat enough, I've been joining, some groups. I hike and I backpack, and I've done some groups with that. And they're not, everybody there is really nice to talk to while you're engaging in those activities, but it hasn't carried over to friendship outside of that. I did decide a while back that I'm not going to sit at home and do nothing by myself. I am going to go to concerts alone versus, again, sitting on that couch. So I go to a lot of concerts alone. I joined a meetup group of people that like similar music to me, like heavy metal and punk, stuff like that. And interesting enough, I kind of made a friend through the group. And just to kind of share, so they ask you questions, and and I answered the questions, and one of them was name the 3 best concerts you saw, or something like that. And I threw out one of the bands that I saw way back in the day playing somebody's backyard, and and of course they were like, oh wow, I gotta get this story, and I'll share the story. So we had a fun local heavy metal scene when I was really young. And one of the lead singers, each year he'd do a big barbecue at his house, and they'd have a big invite all the heavy metal bands. So I'm not going to name drop, right? Don't want to be a glory hound. So a band was, they were the next date over, and they were kind of just starting out, and they came and played the dude's barbecue, right? And the band went on to be pretty famous, especially in the heavy metal scene. So I can say I saw them play somebody's backyard. So from there, kind of neat, we just started texting back and forth, and kind of developed a friendship. And we've been bopping around for a little bit now. And so I've done some activities with that group as well. So this individual, we haven't just been texting. We have met in person, at group activities. Right, I go to local cover bands, and funny enough, the heavy metal meetup group did a hike, and I went, right, some stuff like that. So they had actually texted me a couple of days ago, and they're like, at some point, we need to hang out, and I need to unpack what it is that makes you you, because you are pretty unique and crazy, which I am, right? And I was like, definitely. So we hung out at a local coffee shop last night, and I knew before I went that I was going to divulge my disorder, right? I think it's the right thing to do. I think I'm not saying we walk up to people and say, "Hi, my name's Jim. I have narcissistic personality disorder." But if you're gonna have someone that's really a part of your life, I think it's really important that that's something that you share with them, So I shared, and I immediately got That word narcissist, man, it's powerful, it's strong, right? And I saw the immediate reaction, and then when they hear narcissistic personality disorder, wow. And at that point, they started Googling, right? And that's, I don't want to say like I wasn't welcoming this, you know what I mean? But hey, I want to do everything I can to put you at ease. But my disorder does otherwise. So of course, when I saw the eyes pop, I was like, my mind's a mile a minute. Oh my God, you just scared them. They're gonna run. They're gonna, you freak them out. They're afraid. They're afraid of you now, right? And then of course when they're Googling, I was like, oh man, they're looking at the symptoms. They're not gonna let you come to group activities. Like, your disorder's trying to take over. All that immediate negative thoughts. And I'm just doing what I normally do. Going through my progressions, talking myself through it, right? Hey, is there a chance that I'm misinterpreting it? Yeah, I don't know this individual very well. We've only met a couple of times. I don't know their mannerisms, right? And hey, they have every right to be curious. You know what I mean? So of course I was like, hey, look, if there's any questions you want to ask, don't hesitate. I did share the type of narcissist I am. Because I'm not a licensed anything, I don't usually do that here on YouTube. But if you know anything about this disorder, there's multiple types. I'm the type that comes from extreme shame. I'm the one that I always feel like I have no self-worth, no value, right? So I'm not the narcissist that looks in the mirror and says, oh my God, look how amazing I am. I'm the one that puts my head down and goes, and doesn't want to look at myself because I'm ashamed and think I'm terrible and not good enough, and and all. I'm that type, right? But she hit me with a question that she saw in the symptoms that I wasn't necessarily ready for. Do you have fits of narcissistic rage? Oh man. So, and I want to share with you, right, that when I was younger, I definitely had fits of narcissistic rage in relationships. Not physical abuse, but definitely extreme verbal abuse. My last relationship, where we dated for a little over a year, I was not verbally abusive. But that doesn't mean I didn't manipulate, I didn't gaslight, that I didn't do a million other things to be emotionally abusive, right? I wasn't verbally abusive, but I was definitely emotionally abusive, right? And also the person that I was in a relationship with came from extreme trauma. And I had two situations over the time that we dated that I definitely wasn't ready for her response. And I'll share them. One, I had bought us concert tickets to a show, and something came up where we were going out of town, and I was reselling the tickets, and I didn't realize that the resale company had started a new policy where you can only sell them up to like 2 hours before the show or something. I didn't realize that, or I would have dropped the price. And when I found that out, we're in like a hotel, and I want to say, I just turned around and kicked the trash can, and man, she started crying. Like I definitely like struck something with her trauma. That was definitely an act of rage and aggression. I did not kick that trash can towards her. She was on the bed. I was over in the chair. But she came from trauma, and that doesn't belittle me not controlling my anger. There was no need for me to engage that way. And this is before I acknowledged I have this disorder, before I even knew I did. And another one, we were driving somewhere, and I forget, something was happening with, I was trying to get my son was playing in like the national championship hockey game, and I was trying to get it on my phone so I could listen to it while driving. And I wasn't yelling and screaming and cursing at her, but I was yelling and cursing like at the situation. And I definitely struck a trauma nerve with her again. So those were definitely two fits of rage I had in that relationship, even though I didn't verbally abuse her. I never yelled at her. I never screamed at her, right? But she was definitely there for those two fits of rage. So I don't want to act like it's something I've never done. But you know, the person immediately, my negative thoughts is, oh, they're really scared of you. Now they're not going to let you come to meetings, you know, so forth and so on. And that can be a lot to deal with. It'd be really easy for me to be like, Jim, don't ever tell anybody you got this disorder. I mean, they're going to be scared. They're going to be this. They're going to be that, right? It's going to be easy to, you know, to do that, but that's not the right thing to do, right? Again, I'm not saying we tell everybody everything. I'm not walking, you know, hey, Mr. Ennis, you're here for the job interview? Yes, I need to tell you I'm a narcissist. I have narcissistic personality disorder. Like, we don't have to divulge to everybody. But if we're going to have a person that is in our life and we have a genuine relationship with them, whether it be friendship or romantic or other, you know, whatever, and it's going to be a strong relationship, you know, at some point we have to divulge, right? It's going to be very important to the relationship that they be aware. So I divulged, you know, and you know, and I shared some things about what it's like to be me, you know, and have this disorder. You know, they asked questions, and you know, and I answered them, and it went good. It went, you know, I was happy with the result. I did also want to kind of go over some of my successes and other successes and failures. You know, since I've made a video, my kids came and spent a week with me, and that's one of the reasons you haven't gotten a video from me. I of course didn't want to do the video with them in the apartment. Not that I'm ashamed, right? But I didn't want to be in a situation where for like a half an hour I tell them to be completely quiet. I just didn't think it was really fair to them, right? They're kids, man. Get loud, do whatever you want, right? You're staying with dad, right? It's eat cotton candy for breakfast, right? It's party time. So, you know, and I was noticing, so, you know, I was going into some old habits. And when I say old habits, things that I just didn't realize. So, me and the kids, we definitely use a very sarcastic sense of humor with each other. I'll give you an example, you know what I mean? All right, guys, come on, let's get up. We're gonna go walk to the coffee shop. You know what? Why don't you guys go ahead? I'll start walking in about 15 minutes. You know, so I don't get there first. You know what I mean? You know, you're slow and I'm super fast. I mean, you know, like those kind of jokes, right? Hey, I just went grocery shopping. Help me carry in the groceries. Yeah, I probably need to carry them all in because you're not even strong enough to carry one. You know what I mean? Like we make those kind of jokes. But I realized, like, they're allowed to make those kind of jokes. I'm not. I have narcissistic personality disorder, right? So I caught on to that early, and I was like, whoa, you can't do this, right? And I didn't want to openly have that conversation with them because I didn't want to deter them from them continuing to have those conversations. And I did actually, like, not force myself, but I did make it a point, you know, to be more positive in the way I interacted and talked about them, right? I work on my affirmations. You know, it takes 2 positive comments, you know, to counter a negative, right? I got a lot of years of negative comments to these kids, you know what I mean? So yeah, I was hitting them with positive stuff, right? You know, it wasn't all successes. You know, I definitely had some failures. I had a tough half fail, half success. So when I moved in, I ordered Wi-Fi, right? And I have one of those little Fire Sticks. So they're like, oh, you get, I don't know, however long of free TV. I'm like, I don't want it. And they're like, no, it's free. And I'm like, I don't want it. It's free. And I'm like, yeah, and I don't want it. I'm like, look, I ain't hooking it up. Don't put it on there. I don't want to have to cancel it. Like, I refuse. And I'm adamant, right? Because here's the thing. I know how this is going to end. I ordered that before I knew I had this disorder. And I know how I am. I'm like, yeah, this is going to end up with me on the phone yelling and cursing and threatening, you know, somebody. I'm like, man, no. So I went to pay my bill yesterday. And sure enough, there's a fee. And I went in and like, man. So I call them, and I was like, hey, you know, I got to be honest with you. I wanted to avoid this at all costs. And I know that I refuse this service because, like, I'm not good at this. Like, this is a nightmare for me, you know. And I thought like explaining some of that stuff like was really helpful. Like it put like the first girl in like a really like almost like overly nice mood, you know what I mean? And then she transferred me to another department, to like deal with it. We got disconnected, and I tell you what, still kept my cool, right? Called back, next girl, same thing, right? Transferred me to the department. Now I'm on the phone with the department, and and she's like, all right, it's going to take me a minute or two. And while she's doing that, I'm going in and I'm looking up my pay statements, and I realized I moved in September. I got that fee in September, October, November, December, January, February, March, April, May, and now June, right? And I'm like, oh man. And she's like, well, I definitely have it off for the ones in the future. And at that point, I'm like, well, I've been charged from the beginning. So from there, it escalated a little bit because she didn't want to take off any of the current or past charges, only the future charges, right? And this is even before I knew I had my disorder. This is I didn't tell her I have narcissistic personality disorder. I was like, ma'am, you have to understand. Like, this phone call is very triggering for me. Like, I'm trying to stay as calm and as relaxed as I can, but this is really very, very triggering for me. And I'm a narcissist, so I don't know on what true level, but she trying to blame me. Like, I should have been looking at my bill, and I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, and in my mind, all I'm hearing is, you are now taking a situation where I'm using in my mind, I'm thinking this is like an alcoholic. Like, you can't like walk up to me and say, hey, at my desk at work, put a 6-pack of beer and say, you know what, this beer has to sit here all day. You know what I mean? It's like, you're triggering me. You know what I mean? It's like I tried to avoid this. I mean, but I ultimately have to take responsibility for my actions. You know what I mean? And how I react. And now the phone call is getting to like 45 minutes, and and yeah, and like I said, when it comes to my narcissism, this is the worst of it for me. I mean, like I said, I have a terrible thing with not just customer service, but speaking to people on the phone, and especially when I feel I've been wronged. So I mean, like I said, I'm getting hit with some really bad triggers, and I'm getting, man, and I'm trying my best not to escalate, and I'm trying my best, to keep my cool, but that narcissism is arguing with me. It's like, man, you gotta get what's yours. I mean, they've taken your money for, you told them nada, you told them you didn't want it, right? So long story short, I did ask to escalate the call. Spoke to a supervisor. We agreed on they would reimburse 2 months. And at that point, one of the things I told my mind was, hey, the best negotiation is when both sides are unhappy, right? So they're unhappy that they're paying me, the 2 months. I'm unhappy that they're not paying me all of them, right? Everybody's a little unhappy. So that means that there's no winner and there's no loser. Everybody loses a little bit, which means everybody wins a little bit, right? They get to keep me as a customer, right? What I do when I trigger, and what my disorder really kind of feeds me into, is wanting to elevate and escalate calls to get people in trouble, right? And that's something that I really struggle with, and that was tough on the call yesterday, right? So I'm asking for a supervisor, because I mean, at that point, for 10 months I've paid for something that I refused, and you're telling me, well, don't worry, you won't have to pay for it in the future, and you've already kind of told me you believe it's my fault, right? I mean, so I wasn't prepared for that situation to go the way it did, because first off, I didn't look at the bills ahead of time, so I didn't know that I thought, oh, it got added on, the thing is, the trial's over, you know what I mean, or whatever. I didn't even realize it because I never hooked anything up to my TV. I use, like I said, I use my Fire Stick, so I had no idea. I wasn't able to prepare for it like I normally would, right? I normally, walk myself through, a couple of different scenarios. What if this happens? What if that happens, right? And I didn't think about the possibility of it going in this direction, which it did. So there were some successes and some fails in that call. I'm definitely using it as a learning opportunity, right? And it's a good gauge to see where I am compared to where I was. Like, this is nothing even close. I mean, me before this phone call would have been about 15, 20 minutes before I started yelling, cursing, and threatening and hanging up. Well, let me take that back. I was really big on verbally abusing somebody on the phone until they hung up on me. Right? And I'd even do situations where I'd make it a point to yell and curse, but not at them. So there's states where you can't force an employee to be verbally abused on the phone. But big difference between me saying you're effed up and this is really effed up. And I can say this is really effed up over and over again, and I'm not verbally abusing you, right? But when I say you're effed up, now I'm verbally abusing you. And depending upon your state, you can hang up. You can hang up on that call because your employer can't force you to stay on a call where you're being verbally abused. So I was notorious for dancing that line where I was cursing and yelling and screaming, but I wasn't being verbally abusive. And then I would call back and that make a supervisor review the call and get the person in trouble for hanging up on me, which they violated policy. So where I've been able to get to compared to where I was at I've made huge strides, right? And this call was a good indicator of that. It's not necessarily, I'm not giving it a 10, maybe a 7.5, right? And I almost wonder if at some point, if I need to start putting a monetary value on my mental wellness. At that point, it's only a couple of dollars. You know what I mean? Well, not a couple of dollars. It's like $20 a month. But big difference between 1,000, 5,000, 10,000, and $5. So I wonder if I need to maybe have like thresholds where I don't even like pursue it at any point, and I just call and cancel, and hey, just make sure it doesn't hit me anymore in the future. It's okay. You know what I mean? Maybe I told them to turn off Apple iTunes. It's $5 a month or something. I don't know, whatever. And they didn't, and I realized they charged me for like 2 months. Is it worth my mental health, to get $10 back, or I don't know. But maybe that's something I need to look at. Yeah. So I feel like I'm blathering a little bit, and I apologize. But I think that's the key to getting control of this disorder, is being able to review things like that phone call. And even though it's a huge improvement, it's still a huge learning opportunity, right? I've still made the commitment. I want my future to be better than my past, right? I'm on an emotional and psychological, wellness journey, to improve my mental health, right? Not letting a couple of that disorder try to get up there again. I always say, like, the disorder lives on your shoulder, screaming in your ear what to do. And what you got to do is grab them, crumble them up, because you'll never get rid of them. He's always going to be there. Put them underneath your foot so you can just step on them every time you take a step, right? You're stomping on them, right? And he crawling up. He might have got like me. he was crawling up the leg. He was like a tick, right? He thought he was going to get back up on the shoulder. I didn't let him. But I definitely had situations where I kept him under my foot the whole time. so I'm not going to consider this a full success, right? Yeah, I think that's a good metaphor. But I am going to celebrate, the hard work I put in to get to where I'm at, and to realize how much different I am now. Not that I'm where I need to be, right? I'm still progressing. I'm still developing. I'm still learning, right? I'm still getting in control of this, right? But that's what we have to do. Sometimes we have to have fails. Like I had to have those fails with the kids, just something as small as making those negative comments to realize, oh man, right? Old habits die hard, man, right? And it's just something about, I've had one of them stay with me before at a time, but it was both of them. And, I don't know if that factored in, and this is definitely the longest they've stayed with me, in a long time, right? But, I had to realize, and kudos to me. I can pat myself on the back a little bit. Like I identified it in the moment, right? I'm not gonna say like, it's not like I came to make this video and I was like, hey, looking back. But I realized after, I had done that like 2 or 3 times, I was like, whoa, look what you're doing, right? And I was like, oh yeah, like I realized it like in real time. You know what I mean? Not during like a moment of reflection. I was realizing it, like maybe like the 2nd or 3rd time I was doing it as I was saying it, right? And then I was able to have that internal talk with myself to stop it. And that's huge. That's huge. I mean, I'm a narcissist, and you know what kind, which means I want people to be proud of me, right? But you want people to be proud of you, you got to give them a reason. So, I want my kids, to not be embarrassed. I want my kids to be proud of my changes, right? I don't want to have to shove like my successes down their throat. But, it's good to know like we go out in public and they're not scared to be with me like they were before. Like my ex, you know what I mean? She shared with me that, she'd get scared if we went into like a coffee place and I was ordering matcha because, I'd fly off the deep end and, berate the employees and stuff like that, and it was embarrassing for her, and I don't want that for people I care about. I don't want that for people I love, I want them to be happy and comfortable being out in public with me. So that's that's my last week or so, and again, I just hope these videos help in any way. Never hesitate to reach out to me. If you have a question or you think there's something that I can do to help you, I'd be more than willing. And if you are a narcissist, my opinion is never going to change. First thing you need to do is acknowledge you have this disorder. Second, you gotta commit to wanting things to be different, that you want your future to be better than your past, right? You got to commit that you want change, right? Third, you got to get a therapist, right? You got to get a therapist, and you got to let that therapist do their thing, right? Those are huge. And if you're in a relationship with a narcissist, you need to end that relationship immediately. You need to cease all communication, completely block them in any way, shape, or form. Narcissists are all emotionally abusive. And there's a good chance they're not just emotionally abusing you, but they might be physically, sexually, and financially abusing you as well. But they're definitely emotionally abusing you. And if you're not able to get out of the relationship, and I'm not talking about like a romantic relationship, if you're in a romantic relationship with a narcissist, there's no excuse not to get out of the relationship. There's too many resources out there. I'm talking about it. Let's say you have a relative, like an uncle that's a narcissist, and you are not willing to give up Thanksgiving dinner, and not show up to Thanksgiving dinner because that narcissist is there. Then what you need to do is you need to plan what's going to happen over the course of that evening when they engage in their narcissistic behaviors, how you're going to respond. Right, so you don't escalate with them, right? That's the only scenario where you don't cut and sever all ties, if you can. I get it that you have 20 relatives that you love, And why should you, have to sacrifice your relationship with them for one narcissist? You know what I mean? So that's a decision you have to make. And like I said, I would just strongly recommend that you spend some time kind of like before you go into that situation planning on what they're going to do and say and how you're going to respond, right? And, just be ready that, sometimes you just got to remove yourself from the situation. It's very common for narcissists to have to fight, right? They're looking, they're trying to push your buttons in a way you can't even imagine. They want it, right? So you got to be prepared because they might be coming at you ready to engage, All right.